There was a time when the roar of Big Chief's car meant one thing. The king was about to defend his crown. But then, almost overnight, he vanished from Street Outlaws. Fans were left asking, what happened to Big Chief? Why was the face of the franchise suddenly gone from the show that he helped build? This is Street Outlaws Secrets, the channel that digs deep into the behind-the-scenes drama, the rivalries, and the untold stories that TV doesn't always show. So before we jump into the heart of the mystery, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see Street Outlaws forever. To understand why Big Chief disappeared, you first need to remember who he was to the show. Justin Shearer, known to millions simply as Big Chief, wasn't just another racer. He was the soul of Oklahoma City's street racing scene. From the first episode of Street Outlaws back in 2013, Chief stood front and center, clipboard in hand, calling the shots, setting the rules, and racing with a confidence that made him both admired and feared. His car, the Crow, became a legend, a symbol of dominance, resilience, and raw horsepower. And for nearly a decade, Big Chief was untouchable. But power, fame, and adrenaline always come with a price. As Street Outlaws grew from a raw underground show into a full-blown TV empire, things started to change. More money, more egos, more rules. And for a man who lived by street code, those changes didn't sit well. Fans began to notice tension. Chief arguing with producers, calling out competitors, or showing frustration during races. Something was shifting behind the cameras. By 2021, whispers started circulating. Big Chief wasn't happy with how the show was being handled. Some say he clashed with the production team over safety regulations and the direction of the franchise. Others believe it was deeper, that Chief felt the show had drifted away from its roots. For years, Street Outlaws was about authenticity. Real racers, real cars, real risks. But as ratings pressure mounted, the show began to evolve, turning into something more polished, more reality TV-driven. For Big Chief, that was a problem. Then came the breaking point, the filming of America's List. This was supposed to be a celebration of the best, the elite racers from every region. But instead, it became the stage for one of the most dramatic fallouts in the history of Street Outlaws. According to multiple racers who were there, tensions exploded before filming even began. Reports claim Big Chief had a heated argument with fellow racer Precious Cooper. The disagreement supposedly centered on rules: who qualified, how races would be called, and who held authority. And for someone like Big Chief, who had always been the voice of order on the street, that was a battle he wasn't willing to lose. Yet that confrontation, combined with his ongoing disputes with production, proved to be the last straw. Soon after, Big Chief walked away from filming, and his name disappeared from the show's official lineup. There was no formal announcement, no farewell episode, just silence. Viewers tuned in expecting to see their leader, and instead found a void. No Chief, no Crow, just rumors. But was he truly removed, or did he choose to walk away? That's the part where the story gets complicated. Some inside sources suggest that Big Chief was suspended, citing creative differences. Others claim he left voluntarily after being pushed too far by a changing system that no longer respected the street racing spirit. The truth, as always, might lie somewhere in between. And as the months went on, fans took to social media, demanding answers. Was it a fight? Was he fired? Was it burnout? The theories multiplied. Some blamed the network, others blamed ego. Yet the man himself stayed quiet, at least for a while. When Big Chief finally spoke out on his own YouTube channel, his message was calm but powerful. He didn't point fingers or name names. Instead, he talked about burnout, about wanting to get back to what made him love racing in the first place. The streets, the people, and the raw, unfiltered competition. He said he wanted to build again, to race on his own terms, without scripts, without the noise. It wasn't just about leaving a show, it was about reclaiming his identity. But still, the question lingers. Was that his decision, or was it made for him? Why would the biggest name in the franchise step away when the spotlight was brightest? Could it be that the same empire he helped create had grown too big for him to control? Or was there something more personal? A power struggle, maybe even betrayal, among the people closest to him. Because here's the thing, Big Chief wasn't just a racer, he was a leader. And leaders, especially in the underground racing world, don't fade quietly. They make statements. And walking away might have been his loudest statement yet. When Big Chief stepped away from Street Outlaws, America's List, the shockwaves rippled far beyond the streets of Oklahoma. For nearly a decade, his presence had anchored the show. The races, the rivalries, the code of respect that bound the underground community together. Without him, fans felt something was missing, like the heart of the show had been ripped out. But to understand why things went so wrong, we need to look closely at that moment when tensions finally boiled over. The fight that changed everything. The filming of America's List was supposed to be historic. It brought together the best racers from across the country, Memphis, Texas, California, and of course Oklahoma City, to battle for national dominance. But even before the cameras rolled, disagreements over the rules began to fracture the unity. Big Chief had always believed in one thing: fairness. He had built his reputation on calling races straight, with no favoritism, no bending of the code. Yet as the show grew, more voices entered the conversation. Producers, other racers, new cast members, all with their own opinions on how things should be run. According to several insiders, it all came to a head between Big Chief and Precious Cooper, one of the rising stars from the Street Outlaws. Memphis crew. The tension wasn't personal at first, it was about control. Who had the final say in setting the rules for America's List? Chief had been the de facto race master since the early days, but this time, production reportedly wanted to share that power among multiple figures, possibly to create more drama for the cameras. For someone like Big Chief, who prided himself on integrity and authority earned through years of respect, that change felt like a betrayal. The argument allegedly got heated. Some say it was about the way racers would be seated in the list. Others claim it was about safety concerns or communication breakdowns. Whatever the details, voices were raised, lines were crossed, and that was the breaking point. By the end of the night, Big Chief decided to walk away from filming altogether. He packed up, left the set, and refused to return. In the world of reality television, that kind of exit isn't just dramatic, it's final. When news spread, the internet exploded. Forums lit up, Reddit threads dissected every word, and YouTube channels began speculating nonstop. Was it really just about rules? Or had something deeper been brewing between Chief and the network for years? Some longtime fans pointed to earlier seasons, noting how his screen time had subtly decreased, how new personalities were being pushed to the forefront. Maybe the showrunners were slowly shifting focus toward fresh faces, preparing for a future beyond Big Chief. Others had a different theory, that Chief himself had grown tired of the politics. In several interviews, he hinted that the fun was gone. The show that once felt like an authentic underground brotherhood had turned into a machine, driven by ratings, sponsorships, and storylines crafted for drama rather than racing. He missed the simplicity of the streets, lining up, calling the light, letting the cars do the talking. On television, those moments had become staged, edited, and sometimes even manipulated. There's also the human side of the story: burnout, exhaustion, and the toll of fame. For nearly 10 years, Chief had carried the weight of being both a racer and a public figure. He wasn't just responsible for his performance, but for maintaining the reputation of the entire Oklahoma crew. Every race, every crash, every argument was broadcast to millions. That kind of spotlight can wear anyone down. And when you add the constant pressure of production schedules, travel, and fan expectations, it's easy to see why he might have reached his limit. After his departure, Street Outlaws. America's List continued filming without him. The show went on, but the atmosphere changed. Viewers noticed the difference immediately. The dynamic felt off, like a puzzle missing its centerpiece. Even though new stars stepped up to fill the void, none carried the same weight, the same charisma, or the same commanding presence that Big Chief brought to every episode. Meanwhile, Big Chief stayed quiet, at least for a while. He didn't post angry messages or release statements attacking anyone. Instead, he took time off. He focused on his family, his shop, and his passion projects. Then in early 2022, he addressed his fans directly in a YouTube video. Calm, composed, and reflective, He explained that he had left because he no longer agreed with the direction the show was heading. He wanted to race for real again. No cameras, no producers, no scripts. Just him, the crow, and the open road. That message resonated with thousands of loyal fans who felt the same way. The comment sections filled with people saying they missed the old days when Street Outlaws felt raw and genuine. They thanked him for standing up for what he believed in, even if it meant walking away from fame. But of course, the internet never settles for one version of the truth. Some still believed there was more to the story, that his exit wasn't entirely voluntary, that maybe the producers had pushed him out after the confrontation. And that's where the conspiracy theories took off. Some claimed the network wanted to reinvent Street Outlaws without relying on one dominant personality. Others believed internal rivalries within the Oklahoma crew played a role. A few even suggested that legal or contractual issues might have been a factor, though nothing concrete ever surfaced. The fact that Discovery Channel and Chief himself stayed mostly silent only fueled the speculation further. Through it all, Big Chief remained grounded. He focused on rebuilding the Crow, creating his own content online, and reconnecting with the core community of racers who shared his love for the streets. And even without the cameras, his legend continued to grow. Fans realized that while the show might move on, Street Outlaws had been built on his foundation, his vision, his leadership, his code. After Big Chief's departure, the Street Outlaws universe entered a strange new phase. Fans could feel it. The tone, the energy, even the editing felt different. Without him, the show had lost a key piece of its identity. But behind the scenes, his exit wasn't just a sudden decision. It was the result of months, maybe even years, of growing friction between a racer who valued authenticity and a network that needed a polished product for television. At the core of that tension was creative control. In the early days, Big Chief had a major influence on how races were organized, who got on the list, and what rules applied. He wasn't just a star, he was the show's heartbeat. The producers relied on his credibility to connect the underground world to mainstream audiences. Viewers trusted him. When Chief called a race, it meant something. But as Street Outlaws expanded, the balance of power began to shift. Discovery Channel, Pilgrim Studios, and the producers behind the show started to tighten their grip on production. They wanted more structure, more story arcs, and more drama. To them, it was television. To Big Chief, it was tampering with the purity of the streets. Multiple insiders have since hinted that Chief clashed with the production team over how races were being portrayed. He wanted the show to stay true to reality. No staged arguments, no manipulated outcomes, no exaggerated rivalries. But in modern reality TV, conflict sells. Every time Chief pushed for authenticity, producers pushed for entertainment. And that constant tug of war wore him down. One crew member even recalled that Chief often stayed behind after long filming days to double-check footage and ensure the editing would reflect real results. It wasn't ego, it was integrity. He knew that once credibility was lost, the entire show would crumble. But from the network's perspective, too much realism could make episodes slower, less exciting for casual viewers who tuned in for action and personality, not just cars and speeds. Another issue was money, and how much of it was flowing toward the top. As Street Outlaws exploded into a multi-show franchise with spin-offs like No Prep Kings, Fastest in America, and America's List, the budgets grew, but so did the complexity of contracts. Some reports suggest that Chief felt the racers, the ones risking everything on camera, weren't being compensated fairly compared to the production team and executives. He wanted a system where the street racers, the real stars, got their share of the success. When that didn't happen, resentment built up. Meanwhile, Discovery Channel had its own vision for the future. They wanted to expand the Street Outlaws brand into different formats. More cities, more crews, more spin-offs. For the network, it made sense. For Big Chief, it meant diluting the culture he loved. Each new show came with more rules, more formal races, and less of that underground magic. By the time America's List came around, it was clear the network was steering the ship, and Chief wasn't the captain anymore. Then came the conflict that everyone remembers, the one involving Precious Cooper. To many fans, it looked like a personal feud, but insiders say it symbolized something bigger. Precious, part of the Memphis team led by JJ DeBoss, represented the new wave of stars that Discovery was promoting heavily. She was charismatic, outspoken, and brought a fresh audience. Chief, on the other hand, represented the old guard, the racer who built the foundation. Their disagreement over rules wasn't just about racing. It was a clash of eras, of philosophies. When that argument escalated, it wasn't just two racers yelling. It was the breaking point between two visions of what Street Outlaws should be. After that, everything spiraled quickly. Big Chief left the set, and producers made a swift decision. Filming would continue without him. There was no public apology, no negotiation, no effort to bring him back. The network quietly moved forward, focusing on the other racers and ensuring the show stayed on schedule. It was as if they were preparing for this outcome all along. Behind the cameras, those close to Chief said he felt betrayed. He had given nearly a decade of his life to the show, helped build its fan base, and risked his reputation to make it real. To walk away and see it continue without him was painful. But he also knew staying would mean compromising everything he stood for. That's why when he finally spoke publicly, his words were calm but decisive. He wasn't angry, just done. In that statement, Chief talked about getting back to the roots, to the nights of street racing that didn't need cameras or contracts. He spoke about mental exhaustion, about how fame can twist even the purest passion. To many it sounded like closure, but for fans it raised even more questions. Did the network push him out intentionally to take control? Did they feel threatened by his influence? Or was it just the natural evolution of a show outgrowing its original format? Interestingly, shortly after Chief's exit, Discovery began promoting new personalities more aggressively. JJ Dieboss, Ryan Martin, and other racers took center stage. New shows were announced with a different tone, less about one central leader, more about group dynamics and rivalries. It was clear the network was reshaping its brand. Street Outlaws was no longer the world of Big Chief. It had become an ensemble franchise. But even as new stars rose, one thing remained constant. Fans never stopped asking about him. Every trailer, every new season announcement was met with comments like, "Where's Big Chief? Will he ever come back?" It's not the same without him. That loyalty spoke volumes. It proved that while Discovery owned the show, Big Chief owned the culture. And ironically, stepping away may have preserved his legacy better than staying. Because while the show changed, his image remained pure. The man who stood for the streets, for fairness, for real racing. In a way, his absence made him even more iconic. But what happened next is even more fascinating. Big Chief didn't disappear. He started rebuilding from scratch, creating his own projects, racing again without cameras, and connecting directly with fans online. He reminded everyone that the streets existed long before television and would continue long after. When Big Chief left Street Outlaws, many people thought that was the end of his story. After all, how do you walk away from a show that made you a legend? But Big Chief wasn't the kind of man to fade into the background. Instead, he turned his exit into a new beginning. One that showed the world he didn't need television cameras to prove who he was. In the months following his departure, Chief went quiet. No interviews, no fiery statements, no social media battles. Just silence. But behind that calm, he was rebuilding. He poured his energy back into the garage, back into the world that had always given him peace, the world of cars, engines, and street racing. His car, the Crow, which had suffered major damage in past crashes, became his primary focus once again. Rebuilding that car wasn't just about mechanics, it was symbolic. It represented his comeback, his rebirth, and his return to the roots that started it all. When he eventually reappeared online, it wasn't through TV promos or flashy media events. It was through YouTube, his own channel, under his own control. There, fans finally got to hear from him directly. He spoke candidly about what had happened, explaining that it wasn't one big blow-up that made him leave, but years of frustration building up. He talked about the exhaustion of constant filming, about how the joy of racing had turned into a job, and how he wanted to fall back in love with racing again. What made his comeback so powerful was its simplicity. No production crews, no scripted drama, just Chief in his element, talking cars, racing, and sharing wisdom with the same straightforward honesty that made him famous in the first place. Fans responded instantly. Within days, his videos racked up hundreds of thousands of views, with comments flooding in from around the world saying the same thing. This is the real Chief. This is what we missed. He started working on small-scale races again, organizing meetups with local racers, and even mentoring younger drivers who had grown up watching him on TV. For them, he wasn't just a celebrity, he was a mentor, a symbol of what it meant to stay true to your passion, no matter how much the world around you changes. One of the most emotional moments came when he revealed a rebuilt version of the Crow. After years of setbacks, crashes, and controversies, the car that once symbolized his rise to fame roared back to life. It was more than a machine. It was a statement. The roar of that engine wasn't just horsepower, it was defiance. It was Big Chief saying, "I'm still here." Fans began to call it the resurrection of the Crow, and it quickly became one of the most watched stories in the street racing community. For many, it felt like Chief had found a new purpose. Not to dominate a TV show, but to inspire a generation of racers to do it their own way. But Chief didn't stop there. He began exploring ways to build his own brand outside of Discovery's shadow. He collaborated with car builders, hosted community events, and even hinted at creating a new type of racing show. One that would be independent, raw, and driven by the racers themselves. He wanted to bring back what made Street Outlaws magical in the first place: the realness, the risk, and the respect of the streets. Meanwhile, fans kept speculating whether he would ever return to the main show. Every new season announcement was met with a flood of comments. "Bring Chief back. It's not the same without him. The show lost its soul." Those messages became impossible to ignore, even for the producers. But despite the calls, Chief never rushed to return. He made it clear that if he ever came back, it would only be under the right circumstances. On his terms, not anyone else's. He also spoke about the toll that fame had taken on his personal life. Being constantly filmed, traveling nonstop, and living under fan expectations had affected not just his mental health, but also his relationships. The time off allowed him to reconnect with his family, to breathe again, and to rediscover why he fell in love with cars as a kid growing up in Louisville, Kentucky. There's something deeply human about that, because when you strip away the fame, the cameras, and the money, Big Chief is still just a racer at heart. Someone who loves the sound of engines, the smell of rubber, and the thrill of competition. That's what always made him different. He wasn't chasing fame. Fame found him because of his authenticity. And now, away from the spotlight, he's using that authenticity to build something new. His YouTube channel has become more than just a platform. It's a community. People come not only for racing updates, but also for advice, inspiration, and a sense of connection to the street culture that mainstream media often overlooks. Chief talks about racing, but he also talks about life, about loyalty, about hard work, and about standing by your principles even when it costs you everything. It's that attitude that's turned his exit from Street Outlaws into something bigger than a controversy. It's become a story of resilience, a reminder that sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing freedom. But what about the rumors that he might return one day? In interviews, Chief hasn't ruled it out completely. He said that he still has respect for many of the racers and producers, and that if the show ever returns to its roots, he'd consider it. But he's also made it clear that he's happier now than he's been in years. Racing because he wants to, not because a network tells him to. And that's what makes his story so powerful. Big Chief didn't get removed from Street Outlaws. He removed himself from a system that stopped being real. And by doing so, he proved something that every racer, every fan, and every dreamer understands. You can lose the spotlight and still win your life back. Even after years away from the spotlight, Big Chief's presence still lingers like the sound of an idling engine echoing through the night. His departure may have left a gap in Street Outlaws, but his influence never truly faded. Every new racer who steps to the line, every argument about rules, every late-night showdown still carries the weight of the system he built. To understand the legacy of Big Chief, you have to understand one thing. He wasn't just part of Street Outlaws, he was Street Outlaws. When the show first launched, nobody expected it to become a cultural phenomenon. It was rough, raw, and unfiltered. A group of underground racers risking everything for pride and speed. What made it special wasn't just the cars, it was the authenticity. Viewers could feel that these people weren't actors. They were real racers, with real rivalries and real danger on every run. And Big Chief, with his quiet confidence and deep love for the game, became the heartbeat of that movement. He wasn't just a competitor. He was a leader, an organizer, a referee, and a voice of authority who brought structure to chaos. Without him, the show might never have found its rhythm. And even after he left, that blueprint, his way of running a list, enforcing rules and maintaining honor on the streets, continued to shape how the series operated. But once Chief was gone, the chemistry changed. The newer versions of Street Outlaws leaned harder into dramatized rivalries, high-production races, and spin-offs that felt more like television events than underground challenges. The show grew bigger, but to many fans, it also grew less real. It was entertainment now, not rebellion, and that's exactly what Chief had warned about. Social media told the story clearly. Under every trailer, every post, every new episode, fans echoed the same message. It's not the same without Big Chief. Some even stopped watching altogether. Ratings dipped slightly during the transition, and though new stars emerged, like Ryan Martin, JJ DeBoss, and others, none carried the same mythic aura that Chief had built over nearly a decade. For a while, there were whispers that Discovery Channel might invite him back for a special reunion episode or a spin-off dedicated to the original Oklahoma crew. The nostalgia was too strong to ignore. Yet every time the question surfaced, Chief's response remained grounded. He said he was open to talking, but only if the show returned to its roots, if it put racing first, not scripted drama. And that condition, at least so far, hasn't been met. Still, his story didn't end with Street Outlaws. If anything, it expanded beyond it. Through his YouTube presence, his shop, and his appearances at grassroots racing events, Chief reconnected with the community in a more personal way. Without a film crew around, he could speak freely about engines, about fairness, about what racing really means. And that authenticity only deepened his bond with fans. He also became an example of what it means to walk away with dignity. In an age where fame often consumes people, Chief showed that you can take control of your narrative. He didn't lash out or try to tear others down. He simply stepped aside, let the noise fade, and rebuilt himself in silence. That kind of grace is rare in any industry, especially one built on competition and pride. And yet, despite moving on, Chief's influence continues to guide the world of street racing. His insistence on fair rules inspired other organizers. His focus on building community over ego helped younger racers understand that the sport is bigger than any one person. Even rival crews have acknowledged that without Big Chief, Street Outlaws wouldn't exist in the first place. There's also a deeper meaning behind his journey, one that fans still talk about today. Big Chief's story isn't just about cars or television, it's about integrity. It's about standing your ground when the world tries to change who you are. It's about walking away from something successful because you refuse to compromise your principles. That's the kind of story that resonates far beyond racing. So, will Big Chief ever return to Street Outlaws? Maybe, maybe not. In his own words, never say never. But even if he doesn't, his mark is permanent. His voice, his leadership, his car, the Crow, they've become part of street racing history. Future generations will still talk about the man who turned a local racing list into a national phenomenon. And maybe that's the real victory. Not fame, not TV ratings, but the respect of millions who saw in Big Chief something real. A racer who refused to sell out, a leader who earned loyalty through action, and a man who chose the road over the red carpet. So, as the engines roar on and new names rise, one thing remains true. Every time the light drops and two cars launch into the darkness, somewhere in the spirit of the street, Big Chief is still there. His legacy drives the culture, the code, and the heart of Street Outlaws. This is Street Outlaws Secrets. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because we'll keep digging deeper into the untold stories, the rivalries, and the truths behind the biggest names in street racing. And as always, remember, on these streets, respect is earned, not given.